The great hall of the celestial throne was silent in a way that felt heavy, as if even the air was waiting for something dangerous to happen. Tall silver pillars rose toward a ceiling filled with glowing stars that moved slowly like living constellations. At the center stood Queen Lysara, ruler of the Elthari Empire, her presence calm yet powerful. Every noble, soldier, and advisor in the chamber watched her closely, sensing that something was wrong. Outside the hall, whispers had already begun spreading across the palace. The queen had summoned a human. That alone was enough to disturb many of the older nobles. Humans were respected across the galaxy for their endurance and adaptability, but they were also unpredictable. They did not always follow tradition. They did not always respect hierarchy. And yet, Queen Lysara had chosen one human as her personal advisor during the recent border wars. Commander Elias Ward walked into the chamber with steady steps. His uniform was simple compared to the ornate clothing of the Elthari nobles, but his posture carried quiet confidence. He had survived battles many believed impossible, and his reputation among soldiers was strong. Still, he could feel the tension in the room pressing against him like invisible weight. He stopped at the marked line before the throne and bowed respectfully. The queen's eyes remained fixed on him. They were bright, almost glowing faintly, revealing both strength and deep emotion hidden beneath royal control. "You arrived quickly," she said. "I came as soon as your summons reached me," Elias replied calmly. Her voice grew sharper. "Good. Because what we must discuss cannot wait." A murmur moved through the chamber. Elias felt confusion rising inside him. He had been recalled from military planning without explanation. He expected news of war, perhaps another threat from rival empires. Instead, the queen's tone carried something more personal. She raised her hand and the chamber fell completely silent. "Commander Elias Ward," she announced, her voice echoing across the hall. "You have caused a situation that challenges everything our science understands." The nobles exchanged shocked looks. Elias blinked slowly. "Your Majesty, I do not understand." "You will," she said quietly. Then she took a slow breath as if preparing herself. "I am carrying a child." Gasps filled the chamber instantly. Before Elias could process the words, she continued, "And the physicians claim that you are the cause." The silence that followed felt louder than the earlier gasps. Elias' mind struggled to catch up. His training taught him to remain calm under pressure, but this accusation made no sense. Humans and Elthari were considered biologically incompatible. Every known study confirmed it. Even casual physical interaction required medical supervision due to differences in physiology. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, choosing his words with respect, "there must be some mistake." Her gaze sharpened. "That is what I hoped as well." She gestured, and several royal scientists stepped forward. One activated a floating display showing complex genetic patterns and energy readings. Elias recognized enough to understand that the data was serious. "The child's genetic structure contains human markers," one scientist explained nervously. "We have verified the results multiple times." The nobles began whispering again, some shocked, others suspicious. The queen stood taller. "Until we understand how this happened, Commander, you will remain within the palace." Elias felt the meaning behind her words. He was not a guest anymore, he was a controlled variable. "I will cooperate," he said quietly. Days passed, and the palace atmosphere changed dramatically. Guards watched Elias everywhere he went. Scientists requested blood samples, interviews, and detailed reports about every interaction he had ever shared with the Queen. He replayed every memory carefully. He remembered their first meeting during a desperate battle when her empire faced defeat. He had advised unconventional strategies that turned the tide. He remembered long nights discussing leadership, the loneliness of command, and the responsibility leaders carried for every life lost, but nothing that could explain this. Meanwhile, political factions began forming. Some nobles viewed him as a threat, claiming humans must have hidden technology. Others argued that he represented a new future, proof that cooperation between species could achieve miracles. The Queen's behavior remained complex. In public, she maintained strict authority. In private meetings, however, her anger softened into thoughtful silence. She asked questions about human biology, human emotions, and human relationships. Elias noticed something else as well. Beneath her calm exterior, she seemed afraid. One evening, she summoned him to a private garden high above the city. Artificial sunlight bathed silver trees in soft glow. "You are not afraid," she said without turning toward him. "I have learned that fear is easier to manage when you understand the situation," he replied. "And do you understand this one?" "No," he admitted. She finally looked at him. "Neither do I." For the first time since the announcement, her voice carried vulnerability. She explained how the child had been discovered during routine medical scans. The energy signature surrounding it was unlike anything her species had ever recorded. "It feels different," she said quietly, "as if something new is growing within me, not only physically but emotionally." Elias listened carefully. He realized that her anger earlier had been fueled by uncertainty rather than accusation. Together, they reviewed old mission records. Eventually, one moment stood out. Months earlier, she had survived a near-fatal assassination attempt. Elias had applied emergency nanomedical treatment, experimental technology designed for humans to accelerate healing. It had been a desperate choice made under extreme pressure. The scientists now believed that treatment may have triggered unknown biological responses. Outside the palace, rumors spread quickly across the empire. Religious groups claimed prophecy. Rival empires sent hidden probes toward Elthari space, hoping to gather intelligence. The Queen's advisors warned that enemies might attempt invasion if they believed the child possessed unique power. Elias felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier each day. Despite political tension, their conversations became more personal. She asked about Earth, about family traditions, about why humans often risk their lives for strangers. "Because connection gives meaning," he said one night. "Without it, survival alone feels empty." She considered that quietly. An unexpected attack inside the palace shocked everyone. A rogue noble attempted to assassinate the queen during a council meeting, believing her pregnancy endangered the empire. Elias reacted instantly, pushing her aside and stopping the attacker before guards arrived. Afterward, she looked at him differently, not as a suspect, but as someone she trusted. "You always stand between danger and others," she said softly. "It's what humans do when they care," he replied. Later that night, the royal scientists delivered new data. The child's energy output had increased significantly. Sensors across nearby star systems detected it, creating signals visible far beyond the empire. Enemy fleets began moving. As the realization settled over the palace, the queen stood at the observation window watching distant stars. "This child will change everything," she said quietly. Elias stood beside her, knowing that whatever came next would test both of them, and perhaps the entire galaxy. And for the first time since arriving, he understood why she refused to let him leave. Not because she blamed him, but because she needed him. The palace changed after the attack. Where once there had been quiet elegance, now there was constant movement. Guards rotated every hour. Patrol drones floated silently through corridors. Advisors spoke in hushed voices, and every decision felt heavier than before. Commander Elias Ward noticed it immediately. The atmosphere was no longer just tense. It was fragile, as if one wrong action could break everything. Queen Lysara stood at the center of that pressure. She continued her duties without showing weakness, attending council meetings, reviewing military reports, and maintaining control over the empire. Yet Elias could see the exhaustion behind her calm expression. The child growing inside her had begun to affect more than her body. Strange energy pulses moved through the palace at unpredictable intervals. Lights flickered. Advanced systems shut down for seconds before restarting. Scientists rushed through halls carrying data pads filled with new readings every hour. The royal physician explained that the child's energy was expanding rapidly, far beyond expected growth rates. "It does not behave like any known life form," the physician said during one briefing. "It reacts strongly to emotional environments." That detail stayed in Elias' mind. Meanwhile, news of the queen's pregnancy spread beyond the empire despite strict secrecy orders. Trade ships carried rumors, diplomatic channels buzzed with questions. Some allied worlds sent messages of support, while others expressed concern. Rival factions saw opportunity. Long-range sensors detected multiple fleets moving closer to Elthari space. Officially, they claimed routine patrols, but everyone knew the truth. They were watching, waiting. Inside the council chamber, nobles argued fiercely. Some demanded stronger defenses. Others believed the child should be hidden or even removed to avoid drawing attention. One elder noble stood and pointed toward Elias. "This human is the center of it all," he declared. "His presence has brought chaos." Elias remained silent. He had learned that reacting emotionally inside political environments rarely helped. Queen Lysara's voice cut through the argument. "He has also saved this empire more than once," she said calmly, "and he remains under my protection." The discussion ended immediately. After the meeting, she walked beside Elias through a quiet corridor lined with ancient artwork. For a moment, neither spoke. "You do not defend yourself when they accuse you," she said finally. "I defend actions when necessary," he replied. "Words change nothing if trust is already broken." She studied him carefully. "Humans accept blame easily." "No," he said with a faint smile, "but we understand that trust is earned through time, not arguments." She nodded slowly. Later that day, they reviewed historical archives together. The royal historians uncovered ancient legends describing rare events where different species formed deep mental bonds during moments of extreme crisis. According to these stories, such bonds could alter biology itself. Most scientists dismissed the idea as myth. But nothing else explained the current situation. During training exercises, Elias began teaching royal guards human combat strategies. Instead of relying solely on strength or advanced technology, he emphasized teamwork, adaptability, and anticipation. The soldiers struggled at first. Human tactics required flexibility rather than strict formation. But soon they began improving rapidly. Word spread through the palace that the human commander had transformed the royal guard into something stronger. The queen watched one session from above. She saw soldiers laughing after difficult drills, supporting each other rather than competing. "You lead differently," she said later. "Humans survive because we depend on each other," he explained. "Independence is important, but connection is stronger." She thought about that for a long time. As days passed, her anger toward him faded completely. Instead, curiosity replaced it. She asked about Earth's oceans, cities, and cultures. He described festivals, music, and quiet evenings shared with family. "You speak often about family," she said one evening. "It shapes who we become," he answered. Her gaze softened slightly. During a late-night discussion, the palace suddenly shook. Alarms filled the corridors. An intruder had breached internal security. Elias reacted instantly, moving toward the threat without hesitation. The queen followed despite protests from guards. Inside a maintenance corridor, they found a small group of rebels attempting to sabotage energy systems connected to the royal wing. The attackers believed disabling palace defenses would allow external enemies to strike. A brief fight followed. Elias moved with calm precision, disabling threats without unnecessary harm. The queen fought beside him with graceful strength, her presence commanding even in battle. When it ended, she looked at him closely. "You did not hesitate," she said. "I protect allies," he replied simply. Her expression changed slightly, as if something inside her shifted. Later, scientists revealed new findings about the child. The energy pulses seemed to stabilize when Elias was nearby. Sensors recorded calmer fluctuations when he and the queen spoke together. Some researchers believed their emotional connection influenced the child's development. This idea disturbed many nobles but fascinated others. Meanwhile, an enemy fleet finally entered the outer system. Their message arrived shortly after. They demanded negotiation regarding the hybrid heir. The words alone caused anger across the empire. Queen Lysara refused their request immediately. "We will not allow anyone to claim what belongs to us," she declared. War preparations accelerated. Elias worked closely with military leaders, combining human unpredictability with Elthari technology. Defensive formations shifted constantly, making enemy predictions difficult. At the same time, the queen struggled privately with uncertainty. One evening, she admitted something quietly. "When I first accused you, I was afraid," she said. "Not of you, but of losing control over my future." Elias listened without interrupting. "In our culture, rulers must always appear certain," she continued. "But this situation makes me feel vulnerable." He nodded slowly. "Humans learn that vulnerability is not weakness," he said. "It means something important is at stake." She smiled faintly at that. As enemy ships gathered near the system's edge, tension reached its peak. Citizens across the empire watched news broadcasts, wondering whether peace or war would come next. Inside the palace, the child's energy surged again, stronger than before. Windows vibrated. Systems flickered. Scientists rushed in with urgent reports. "The child is responding to external threats," one said breathlessly. "It may be reacting to conflict itself." Queen Lysara stood tall despite exhaustion. "Then we must prepare," she said. Elias remained beside her, understanding that the coming days would decide everything, not only for the Empire, but for their growing bond. And as the enemy fleet's lights appeared clearly in the sky for the first time, he realized that this conflict was no longer about politics or science. It was about protecting a future neither of them fully understood yet. The stars outside the palace burned brighter than usual, not because they had changed, but because the Empire now watched them with fear. Enemy ships filled the distant sky like dark shapes waiting for the right moment to strike. Massive cruisers hovered beyond defensive lines, their weapons powered but silent, sending a clear message: surrender or prepare for war. Inside the command chamber, Queen Lysara stood beside a wide, transparent screen showing fleet positions. Admirals spoke quickly, voices layered with urgency as strategies shifted every minute. Commander Elias Ward listened carefully, his attention moving between the tactical displays and the Queen herself. She looked strong, but he could see the weight pressing on her shoulders. The unborn child's energy pulses had grown stronger, and each surge rippled through nearby systems like waves across water. The enemy fleet sent another message. "This is your final opportunity. Deliver the hybrid heir peacefully, and we will withdraw." Silence followed. Every eye turned toward the Queen. Her voice remained calm when she answered, "No." The transmission ended. War began minutes later. Enemy fighters moved first, testing defenses. Energy beams flashed across space as Elthari ships responded. Explosions appeared like brief stars before fading into darkness. Elias stepped forward. "They are probing for weaknesses," he said. "They expect traditional responses." "And what would humans do?" she asked. "Change the pattern before they learn it," she nodded once. Orders spread across the fleet. Ships shifted positions unpredictably, moving in formations unfamiliar to enemy sensors. Human-inspired tactics confused targeting systems, forcing attackers to hesitate. Meanwhile, inside the palace, tension grew among the nobles. Some still believed surrender was the safest choice. Secret meetings formed, and whispers moved through corridors like shadows. Elias discovered one such gathering while moving between strategy rooms. Several nobles argued that the Queen risked everything for an uncertain future. "She refuses to see reason," one said. "We cannot allow the Empire to fall because of one child." Elias stepped into the room quietly. "Fear makes people believe surrender equals safety," he said calmly, "but it often only delays the danger." Some glared at him, but others listened. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded again. Enemy forces launched a heavier attack. The Queen joined Elias on the observation deck as massive flashes lit the sky. Ships collided. Defense satellites fired continuously. Then something unexpected happened. A deep wave of energy moved outward from the palace. Lights dimmed briefly, then stabilized. Scientists rushed in with stunned expressions. "The child's energy is expanding," one said. "It is responding directly to the conflict." The Queen placed a hand over her abdomen, feeling warmth spreading through her body. Elias noticed that the energy felt calm rather than violent. "It's not attacking," he said quietly. "It's reacting." Outside, several enemy weapons malfunctioned suddenly. Targeting systems froze. Some ships lost power temporarily. The energy field created by the child appeared to disrupt aggression without destroying anything. The enemy fleet paused. Inside their ships, confusion spread. Queen Lysara realized something important in that moment. "This child does not seek domination," she said softly. "It seeks balance." Despite the advantage, betrayal struck unexpectedly. One noble faction attempted to seize control of palace defenses, believing they could negotiate surrender directly. Security systems locked temporarily, and chaos erupted within the command structure. Elias moved quickly, coordinating loyal guards to restore control. Instead of punishing the rebels harshly, he chose containment and communication. "Humans survive by bringing people back together," he told the Queen afterward. "Division only helps the enemy," she understood. During a live broadcast across the Empire, she addressed her people directly. "This child is not a weapon," she said. "It is a symbol of unity, proof that different worlds can create something new together." Then she did something that shocked everyone. She announced that Elias was no longer a prisoner or suspect. "He stands beside me not by force," she declared, "but by choice and trust." Citizens across the empire responded with overwhelming support. Soldiers felt renewed strength. Even doubtful nobles began reconsidering their positions. The enemy fleet launched one final attack, perhaps hoping to overwhelm defenses before unity could strengthen further. Elias led a mixed-species squadron into battle, combining human risk-taking with Elthari precision. Ships moved like a living organism, protecting each other while pushing attackers away from the core system. At the height of the conflict, the child's energy surged again, stronger than ever. A massive wave spread through space, forming a luminous shield around the planet. Enemy weapons powered down instantly, not destroyed but rendered harmless. Silence followed. The invading commanders realized they could not claim control over such power. It did not respond to force. It responded to connection. Slowly, their fleet began retreating. Cheers erupted across the empire. Inside the palace, relief replaced tension. Queen Lysara stood quietly, watching enemy ships vanish into distant stars. "It is over," she said softly. Elias nodded, though he knew the future would still hold challenges. Peace negotiations began soon after. Other civilizations reached out, not with threats but curiosity. The child had changed the balance of power, showing that cooperation could achieve what domination could not. Weeks passed. The palace returned to calm, though it felt different now, warmer, more open. One evening, the queen summoned Elias to the same garden where they had once spoken in uncertainty. "You are free to leave," she said gently. "Your duty here is complete." He considered her words carefully. "I stayed because you needed help," he said. "But now I stay because I choose to." Her expression softened. The distance between ruler and advisor disappeared in that moment, replaced by something deeper, mutual respect, trust, and quiet affection. The empire began preparing for a new era, one defined not by fear of difference, but by the strength created when differences came together. And as the stars moved slowly above them, both understood that the greatest strength humanity brought to the galaxy was not technology or power. It was the ability to stand beside others and build a future no one could achieve alone.